Good day, everyone. Eric Olsen from Helps on YouTube Live for Helps Law Firm for Seniors today on February 3rd, 2026. Good to have you here. Trust you can hear me okay. My name's Eric, attorney for 47, 48 years now, founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm. What we do is represent seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay. We educate them how they can maintain their financial independence. Our main mission is to protect seniors from debt collector harassment. Okay. And we do that under a federal law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, which provides if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors have to communicate with the attorney. They have to leave you alone. And that's what we do. We represent seniors who owe debt to stop collectors from bothering them. And if you're younger, you don't necessarily have to be a senior. It's just based on your income. If you get Social Security, it's protected. Virtually all forms of disability are protected. Federal and state laws protect this income. Your pension is protected. Okay. It's available for your needs, for your food, your medicine. Okay, so I'll just start out with this one. A guy contacted us from Michigan, and he says, I leased a 24 VW in October of 24. What was that? A year and a half ago. And I'm sorry to sound naive, but I didn't read all the fine print in the lease agreement. The dealership salesman called me and asked me if I wanted to upgrade my vehicle. And I said yes. He reduced my monthly payment by $200. However, I put $2,000 down on a new purchase vehicle, which was a 2025 Jeep Compass, which I'm presently driving. So I turned in the VW after only 1 year. Now Volkswagen has sent me a text and call saying I owe a balance of $20,000 on the 24 Tiguan, which I do not have. He surrendered it. I wish the dealer would have explained the situation more clearly to me at the time, or I would have remained on the lease. However, now I have a purchase compass. In other words, he's purchased this Jeep, and Volkswagen Financial is asking for the balance, which is $20,000. They turned it over to a collection agency, which is called Transworld Systems. Transworld Systems have called me. They keep calling me in this regard. I'm a 70-year-old retired truck driver. I don't know what to do. Please text or call to consult about this matter. Thank you. Okay. So he got himself in kind of a little pickle, but it's going to be okay. So he's 70 years old. He's retired. That means he's getting Social Security, maybe getting a pension. He's got income that's protected. And then he leased a car, and usually a lease goes for could go 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever. And then the middle of the lease, or near the beginning of the lease, the salesman said, hey, would you like to upgrade and get a nicer car? And he said, yeah. And so it looks like he ended up buying this brand new Jeep. And he says, okay, I got this new car. I don't need this lease. And so he gave the leased car back, not realizing that he would owe money on the lease. Okay. Now, the salesman should have explained it to him, but the salesman was probably looking out for his commission, or he assumed this, I don't know. But the bottom line is, we're going to call this guy back. He doesn't have to worry about the money he owes on the Volkswagen that went back. He doesn't have to worry about Transworld Systems Incorporated. If he wants our help, he can enroll in help. So give us the creditors he owes money to, including Transworld, and they're going to stop bothering him. And even if he gets sued, they can't collect from him. He doesn't need to worry. Okay? So if you have any questions, put them in the chat feature. I'll address them there. And then we have a bunch of other questions that I've written out that people have called us. The most important thing we want you to know is that your income is protected. And what Helps does is we represent seniors and disabled persons, no matter what your age is, getting protected income to stop the collectors from harassing you. When you find out about Helps, you talk to us 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5 times. You decide to enroll, we do that over the phone. We push a button and you'll be sent an email confirming you're a member of HELPS. Okay. Uh, so Ms. H asks, when a senior receives a 1099-C from a creditor and it says discharged, what does it mean? Um, it says if you file taxes, you need to put that on when filing taxes from the previous year. Well, okay. A 1099-C is a form that a creditor sends you when they write a debt off, when they say they determine that the debt is, they're not going to be able to collect the debt anymore. And then that issue, and if it's over $600, they're required to send that to the IRS. They send you a copy of the 1099-C, and supposedly what it means is that that debt you didn't pay should become part of your income since you didn't pay the debt back. Now, uh, if you don't file tax returns, if your only income is Social Security, maybe a little bit of other income, you're not required to file tax returns. I wouldn't worry about it. The IRS isn't going to do anything. Now, if you are required to file tax returns, um, you're probably not going to have to worry about the 1099-C for a couple of reasons. One is there's a form called 982 if you're insolvent, which means if your debt exceeds your assets. Let's say you got 30,000 in credit card debt, and you're renting where you live and just got some old just furniture. You're insolvent, which means your debt, the 30,000, is more than what the assets you have are. And then you can file for a form 982 with the 1099-C. When you file a tax return, you won't owe any tax. You won't owe any taxes. But even if you did owe taxes and your income is modest or minimal, 2,500 if you're a single person or 3,500 if you're a couple, around that, you could qualify for what's called currently not collectible status with the IRS and not have to pay the tax. So the chance of you having a tax is minimal. Okay. Okay. So, but most of our clients, this is never a problem. And you can always call and talk to us about it. So this person contacts us from Oregon. They get not a lot in Social Security, but they have a little bit of wages, and they're renting where they live. They spoke with a bankruptcy attorney who referred them to HELPS. So she contacted us. Looks like yesterday. We explained what we did, and they decided to enroll in HELPS. It says they have several bank accounts, but they're changing their bank to U.S. Bank and will only have one checking account into which their Social Security goes. Now, why is that? That's because if you have one account and if someone were to sue you and get a judgment, then the bank into which your Social Security goes, they automatically protect twice the amount of the money you receive from a federal benefit like Social Security in that account from garnishment. They don't have to do it right away because they haven't been sued yet, but they're going to do it anyway. Okay. We emailed them an email that talks about how their bank account is protected, and the debt this person has was just credit card debt, and it looks like the wages are all protected. See, every state protects a federal law. There's a federal law that protects a minimum of $217.50 net per week in wages, $435 every 2 weeks, about $945, $950 a month in wages is protected automatically. And some states protect more than that. Okay, so this person, although they had wages, they may have made a little bit more than what was protected. But even if a creditor would have to sue, then know where they work, and then it's unlikely that's going to be an issue. Okay. It says there's no lawsuit or judgments, but they expect them. Well, maybe. It doesn't, just because you enroll in helps doesn't mean you're going to be sued. Probably less likely that you would be sued because we send a letter to the creditors you owe money to, let him know that your income's protected. And if anyone reads the letter on the other side, they're going to realize that, oh, kind of a waste of time to sue this person. Okay, so if you have these kind of problems or questions come up, don't hesitate to call us down below, 855-435-7787. We're here to answer your questions. The most important thing Helps does is when people enroll with Helps, we're always there. So if you have a question or if you're worried or scared, you can always pick up the phone and you call, no matter how often. Okay? What if the senior, Miss HS, what if a senior is working and considered tax exempt when filing taxes? Do the other form need to be filed with a 1099 to say insolvent? Uh, well, if you're going to file a if you're required to file tax returns, then yeah, you would file Form 982 with a 1099-C saying you're insolvent. Okay. I need to put my phone on mute so I don't get bothered by that ringing in my ear. Sorry about that. When I enroll with Helps, and this person asked CME, when I enroll with Helps and I have multiple collections, do I give you all that information now, even if I'm not being pursued? Yeah, you do. I'll explain. If we have 5 people that contact us for Helps, okay, maybe 1 out of 5 is being sued, okay, and then 3 or 4 out of 5 you're behind on, you're being harassed by creditors, and maybe 1 out of 5 of our clients is completely current on everything. So it doesn't matter where you are. So yeah, if you're current on stuff, give us the creditor. We'll send a cease and desist letter to them. Now, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, which is the law we operate under, which was passed in 1978, provides that one of the provisions, if you're represented by an attorney, collectors have to speak with the attorney, not you. Okay, and that's the law we work on. So, and it applies to a debt collector, the Fair Debt Collection. It doesn't apply to an original creditor, which means technically, if you have a debt and it hasn't been turned over by the credit card company to a debt collector, they can still call you or contact you. We still send a cease and desist letter. Why? Well, because it's their practice to honor our cease and desist letter. One reason is there's at least 7 states that have taken the Federal Fair Debt Collection and Practices Act and apply it to original creditors. And then they may still send you a bill, but they're going to stop calling you. Now, it may take several weeks. Takes you need to get us the creditors you owe money to, then their name, address, account number. They're going to send a letter to the creditor or the collector you owe money to, but it takes them a little while to process that. But they're going to stop bothering you. So, person contacts us from South Carolina, younger, age 49. He's on VA disability. And he says, I'm a veteran living off of VA disability. I've fallen behind very badly on several debts and have collectors calling me. I live in South Carolina. I wanted to see if you guys could help me, please. I'm sure we can help him. So that's what it says. And then he called, looks like yesterday. He's struggling with credit card debt and he had a car that was repossessed. And then he was overseas a lot. And then he owes some back taxes. Okay, so he owes the IRS some back taxes, looks like. He may not have to worry about it. Depending on what his income is, he may qualify for what's called currently not collectible status with the IRS. Like I explained, if he's single, like $2,500 or less. Now, if you wanted to pay the taxes, you could pay it over 5 or 6 years. 14,000 in back taxes, the payment would be minimal. It could be like, $200 a month, $250. If he owes any state income taxes, he doesn't need to worry about it because a state tax collector can't touch your Social Security or your pension. Those monies are protected from a state tax collector. So, Ms. H, does it normally take up for a year for a creditor to send a 1099-C? Is that the reason that they wait so long even after they got a cease and desist letter from HELPS? Yeah, I suppose so. Sometimes they don't even bother to send the letter. Technically, they're supposed to. But it could be, several years down the road before you get it. We've got videos that talk about 1099-Cs, why you don't need to worry. Sometimes I think debt collectors use that 1099-C or the threat of one to try to intimidate someone or intimidate a senior into thinking, oh no, if I don't pay that debt, I'm going to owe some taxes. Okay. So that's one reason they do it. Person contacts us from Oklahoma. They get Social Security at 1450. They found out about us from her mother, who was a HELPS client. They get Social Security disability and long-term workers' compensation paid by the state of Oklahoma for disability. Then they called back on January 21st. They make under the state exemption for wages, in which all their wages are protected. If someone were to sue them, no one could garnish them. I went over what we did. It says, can she repair her credit in the future? And the answer is yeah. We have a program called 7 Steps to a 720 credit score. It's free for clients that have been part of HELPS for more than 90 days. You can rebuild your credit. It might take a year and a half to 2 years, but you can rebuild your credit. It says, Ms. H asks, but Eric, if it comes that late, many years later, talk about a 1099-C, I'm still working a job. Will that affect the worker when the filing taxes being so late? Will that be a worry? Well, the 1099-C doesn't come into effect until they send it to the IRS. So just because it was for a debt that was incurred way back when doesn't mean you had to deal with it back then. You deal with it when you get it. Okay. Now, let's say you are working. Okay. But you're getting Social Security, but you're working, you're not making enough money to file tax returns. You don't need to worry about the 1099-C. IRS isn't going to do anything about it. And if they were to do something about it, you could deal with it then at that point. But let's say you are required to file tax returns and you get a 1099-C. Once again, if you're insolvent, which means if your debt exceeds your assets, then there's a form called 982 that you can file. And you click off the first box which says I'm insolvent. Therefore, there's no tax involved. There's no tax on that debt that you didn't pay. Okay. And it's usually 1099-C is usually sent by the creditor normally not a collection agency. Okay. But let's say you did owe the tax. It wouldn't be very much, okay, for one thing. Next thing is, you know, if your income is low enough, uh, you can qualify for what, like I explained, currently not collectible status with the IRS. We have emails that explain how to get on that. We just don't run into a problem with 1099-Cs. They scare people sometimes, but this shouldn't be a problem. We're happy to go over it with people, explain it to them. Person contacts us from Nevada. Looks like they're married. They both get Social Security. They're buying a home, and each of them owns a car. They have a lawsuit and pending, and they owe their debts. They're concerned about a lien on the home if they want to get a reverse mortgage in a few years. Oh yeah, says they talked to me. I remember talking to these people. They called yesterday. Well, they were like 65, and based on what they owed on the home and what it was worth, they wouldn't qualify for a reverse mortgage. Now they didn't have enough equity. Reverse mortgages are a little bit more difficult to get because interest rates have gone up. And then it's also based on your age. If you're younger, you have to have more equity in the property to qualify for a reverse mortgage. And then they said, well, if we get a reverse mortgage, it's not going to be for 4 or 5 years when we're 70. And I said, well, then, things may change by then. How much were you sued for? And they were only being sued for I think it was $2,500, relatively small amount. I said, you could, if you decide to get a reverse mortgage in the future, you could still get it, even if there is that judgment. It'd have to be paid through the reverse mortgage, or you could try to settle it before you got the reverse mortgage. There's a whole lot of things that you can do to solve that problem. And it wasn't an immediate problem. They were asking, what if down the road we decided to get a reverse mortgage? But in any event, they enrolled in helps. I'll just mention reverse mortgages now. I mention it. When I started helps back in 2012, um, I knew a little bit about reverse mortgages. I'd probably filed 30 or 40,000 bankruptcies, and I knew the basics, but I've learned a whole lot since then about reverse mortgages. And for some seniors, they're really an answer to prayer. They're not for everyone, but for some seniors, they can really solve a big problem. They were relatively easy to get until a few years ago when the interest rates started going up, and now they become more difficult to get. But with a reverse mortgage, what it would do is pay off your existing mortgage so you don't have a house payment anymore. If you have enough equity, it give you a little line of credit. You own the home. You could still sell it in the future if you wanted to. Some people are on the misconception if you get a reverse mortgage, you no longer own the home. That's not true. You could still sell the home if you want. Um, but you could stay there till the day you die. And a lot of times you'll be required to make the property taxes and the insurance. Although if you have enough equity in the reverse mortgage, you could provide that the reverse mortgage would pay your property taxes and insurance. It's kind of up to you. So where would a reverse mortgage make sense for someone? Okay, well, let's say uh, you're widowed, and now your only income was, $1,800 a month. You get the higher of the two Social Securities. You get your spouse's Social Security, yours goes away. But your house payment is $1,000. Okay, maybe the home is worth $200,000, but you only owe $50,000 on it. But with $1,800 in income, time you pay your house payment, you're left with $800, which makes things really tight. Now, if you wanted to stay in the home, uh, you you would have the option of getting a reverse mortgage, which would pay off the existing mortgage, so you no longer have a mortgage payment anymore. Now you got that $1,000 that you can use for your needs, your food and your medicine, with the things you need, and you still own the home, and you can live there till you're 150 years old. No one can take it. Now, if you decided to sell the home, you could sell it uh, and get the equity out of it. You could still leave it to your children if you wanted to. Um, Reverse mortgages aren't for everyone, but for some people, they can really be an answer to prayer. Like the example I just said, if you want to stay in your home and you're under limited income, if you no longer have to make the house payment anymore, that makes it doable that you can afford to stay in the home. Okay. Why does the debt collector report the same debt more than once on my credit report? I don't know. They're not supposed to be able to do that. Although, if you're a helps client, after 90 days, you can enroll in this program, 7 Steps to a 720 credit score. One of the first lessons is how to correct your credit report. And there's ways to get negative entries or entries on your credit report that shouldn't be there removed. Okay. So this person called in. It says they're with a debt management company and they're drowning. We explained how their income is protected, what we did. The next sentence says she was mind blowing. This is one of my paralegals writing this down. It says she was mind blown because she is paying the other group $300 plus for a useless service. She's going to cancel with the company and call later to enroll. And then she called back on January 30th. Looks like that was Friday. Canceled debt management, completed the intake, and enrolled with helps. And she's getting everything this week to us that we needed. Yeah, if you're enrolled with debt management or debt settlement, and they never told you that your income was protected, you weren't given complete information. Why didn't they tell you? If they would have told you that, you wouldn't have enrolled with them. They wouldn't be making money off you. Okay. Person contacts us from Florida. The husband is 60 and the wife is 46. And the wife says, my husband is a 100% disabled veteran. We have a lot of credit card debt and have just stopped paying on most of them. The interest rate kept climbing and available credit on the cards kept dropping. Eventually, most of our payment was towards interest. We have exhausted the majority of our income on credit card payments each month, and we're getting harassed every day, multiple times a day, from credit card companies. We need help. Thank you. Well, that's what HELPS is here for. What does HELP stand? HELP stands for Help Eliminate Legal Problems for Seniors. That's what we're going to do. So we emailed this person what we call our general email that talks about helps and what we do. And then they called back the next day on January 16th and spoke with one of our paralegals. They'd stopped paying on some of the debt, current on others, would like to stop a lawsuit. They have court next month because of a repossessed vehicle. We went over the protections and what we do, and talked about how a judgment lien could be removed from their home if they decided to sell their home. They live in Florida. And then they enroll in HELPS because they didn't need to pay all this debt, and they could stop when they enroll with us, They give us, when you enroll, we enroll you over the phone, and sometimes you might call 2, 3, or 4 times before you decide to enroll, or maybe even the first time. But when we enroll you, we keep you on the phone, and we're going to push a button. You're going to get sent an email that says "Welcome to Helps," and it has a lot of information on it. It tells you how to get us the creditors. You can text them, fax them, email them, mail them, and then our goal is within 24 hours when we get those creditors to send out a cease and desist letter to the debt collector or the creditor, and they're going to stop bothering you. Or in this case, they're going to stop being harassed every day, multiple times a day. That's going to stop. Peace is going to come back to your life. Okay? Can the IRS look into a bank account to see if the money is protected from creditors trying to get the money because of a 1099-C? Um, no, but what the IRS can do is they know what your income is. I mean, they see that you're older and you're getting Social Security. For that reason, and you're not required to file taxes, they don't follow up on it. The normal practice is not to do anything about it. If your only income is Social Security or even a little pension on top of that, and you're not filing taxes, IRS isn't going to follow up on it. I mean, they could, but they don't. Okay. Yeah, if I miss a question, let me know. I try to get them all. Person contacts us from Missouri. They get a good amount in Social Security and a $800 pension. They have a home that's worth about 240 and they owe 70 on it. So they got some equity in the home, and they got sued by Discover, and they found us on YouTube. They have a court date. It says a court date tomorrow, whatever. I don't know when we got this. And has only one other debt, which is American Express. We went over what we did, why she didn't need to worry, why she didn't need to go to court, and we sent them. We have like a lot of emails on different topics. So when you call, we can send you emails on almost any topic that could concern you financially. Um, emails that we sent her on who we help, an email that talks about lawsuit fears, and we also sent an email about bank account garnishment rules, why she didn't need to worry about if they got a judgment, they couldn't take money out of her bank account. And then they called back yesterday, worried about the lawsuit notice from Discover. Person says they're worried about their house. She's leaving it to her son and has some paperwork in place. Yeah, it looks like she owns the home with her son. He's a joint owner, which means when she passes away, the home will automatically transfer to the son. And where a judgment could become a lien on the property when she dies, she no longer owns the property because the property transfers by operation of law because she owns jointly with survivorship rights to the son. Um, and she enrolled in helps, nothing to worry about. I've talked to, when I was doing bankruptcies, we had a problem with these 1099-Cs. clients would come in, and some tax preparers didn't know about Form 982. So they would end up adding that 1099-C as income, and people were being required to pay taxes on it when they didn't need to. But most of them do know the rule. Although I talked to someone the other day, and they actually said they're a tax preparer in there, and they were giving their card out to people. And then I asked them on the side, I said, you prepare tax? I said, do you know what Form 982 is? And they didn't have the faintest idea what Form 982 is. Oh, okay. And the people they were talking to were the kind of people that could get a Form 980 or get a 1099-C. Okay. Person contacts us from Oklahoma. Well, it looks like they enrolled with helps. Another daughter of a mother who was a member of helps. Okay. Person contacts us from Georgia. They're 75 years old. They get $1741 in Social Security income and $160 in wages. And they're using a law firm out of New York, paying them $238 a month for some debt management thing. They had an accident in June of 2023. Wife has cancer. He has another disease. The debt is only in his name. And he does some consulting work and sometimes gets a little salary or gets a little independent contractor work. We emailed him what we did, who we help. This was originally back in, looks like November last fall. Then they called back in December, later in December, getting sued by getting contacted by a debt collector, 4 or 5 different debts. And then looks like enrolled last week with helps. And he just enrolled by himself. His wife isn't part of helps. The house is in both their names. So when you enroll in helps, if you're married and the debt is just in one of your names, then the other spouse doesn't need to be part of helps. Sometimes one couple will enroll in helps and the other one will not enroll because they have debt, but they want to deal with it. But if that other person later changes their mind and decides they need our help, we can just add them to the file. There's no extra charge. We just put your name on, get us the creditors. We'll send it for the spouse that originally didn't enroll with helps. Okay. Person contacts us from Florida. They're getting Social Security, about $1,850, and they're renting. She has a lawsuit for a loan that she owes. And they wanted a $400 payment for the loan, and she can't afford this, it says. And there's court date is coming up. And she's not planning on attending. Is there a point of going to a hearing if she has no plans to pay? No, just get embarrassed yourself. She is aware of a judgment possibly being issued against her, or your income's protected. So what? We explain why she didn't need to go, that our Social Security was protected. Apparently, the debt was with one collection agency who assigned it to a different collection agency. And she's caretaking for her father to help him take care of her dad with her sister. And apparently, dad had a stroke, and their only option was to put him in a nursing home or take care of him around the clock. It looks like they're going to take care of their dad. And then it says, we went over what we do. She had other debt collectors reach out to her, so she had sent cease and desist letters on her own. You can send cease and desist letters yourself. A lot of our clients don't want to do that. You can do that. It says she sent them certified on Tuesday. You don't need to send a cease and desist letter by certified mail. It says due to this, she is unsure if this will work. Wasn't interested in her services at that time. As stated above, she would like to send out cease and desist letters on her own, but maybe give us a call back with additional questions. And then we sent her a bunch of emails. Who can help helps. And then it looks like she called back, decided she didn't want to deal with the problem, and enrolled with helps. When one spouse is a client of helps, is the other spouse automatically added as a client or not? Or do they have to be on the phone also to be? No, they're automatically added if you want them to. Okay. Person calls us from Michigan. Talk to one of our attorneys, it looks like. Read what we did, quoted the fees, and then they enrolled in helps. Well, let's talk about fees for a second. Now, I haven't talked about that today yet. We don't turn anyone away that needs our help, number one. The fees are minimal. The most a person would pay would be $40 for 24 months, $20 for 24 months, free thereafter, or $30 for 24 months, $15 for 24 months, free thereafter, or $20 for 24 months, and then $10 for 24 months, free thereafter. Payment won't begin till at least 30 or 60 days in the future. So when people enroll in helps, we can enroll them, click a button, and they're enrolled immediately. They haven't paid us any money. They're going to give us their debit card name, number, and expiration date, and the payment might begin in 30 or 60 days, depending on when they get their Social Security. So it could be as soon as 30 days or as long as 60 days. We don't need any money up front to enroll in helps. So this person had a stroke that affected his right side. He cannot drive, so he doesn't have a vehicle. He's got a couple houses. He lives in one of the houses trying to get squatters out of the other one so he can sell it. We explained to him that if he sued, there could be a lien on the properties as they're both in the same county where he lives. And he says he may be able to sell the second home before there's any lawsuit. He has one bank checking account where his Social Security is directly deposited, but has a number of automatic payments that he wants to stop. Yeah, if you're going to enroll in helps, you need to stop paying these debts. So we have an email that explains you how to stop automatic payment. You can call the creditor to stop it, or you can do it with your bank. There's different ways to stop it. And she says, I emailed him the email on how bank accounts are protected from garnishment and how to stop an automatic payment. He has about 40 to 50,000 in credit card debt. He knows he doesn't need to pay his property taxes, which he should be able to. He knows he needs to pay his property taxes, which he should be able to, given his income, especially if he doesn't have to pay all this unsecured debt. Yeah. So that's going to make a big difference. He's got 40 or 50,000 in credit card debt he's been dealing with. Doesn't have to deal with that anymore. We were Person contacts us from Wisconsin, and it says here we were denied senior housing based on our credit report and our credit score, even though my partner is receiving Social Security, which more than covers the rent. They called us again on December 1st and said they were denied Section 8 housing due to credit score. Goes on to say, I feel it's time to get a lawyer and hoping you can help me deal with LVNV funding. I would like the collections removed from my. We don't help people ourselves with their credit report. Okay, we don't do that. It's not what we do. What we do is we have a contract with a company called 720 Credit Score, and after you've been part of Helps for 90 days, we'll send you an email. You can ask it, and you can enroll with their program, which is free for Helps clients. 7 steps to a 720 credit score. You can get your credit back. And then let's talk about credit and renting. One thing we do have that we'll give to anyone, whether they're a client of Helps or not, is we have a letter we call it the landlord letter. And it explains to a prospective landlord that your Social Security is protected, as is your pension, your retirement income. It can't be taken from you. That even if you have negative entries on your credit, this money will be available to you to be able to pay your rent. And what we tell people is, before you pay the application fee, take that letter and turn it into to the person who's taking your application for a rental. Because a lot of them don't understand that. And if they understand that, then they can say, "Oh, I didn't realize that." Yeah, turn in your application. See, seniors are usually really good tenants, um, especially when their income is safe and can't be taken. It's always available to pay the rent. Um, so we'll give that landlord out to anyone who wants it, whether they're a member of Helps or not. Now, maybe the person you're applying with, they get that letter and they say, "Oh, well, we have corporate policies about your credit. Maybe they can't change it." Yeah, but a lot of time, the person take the application has authority to take to to make the decision on whether to rent to you or not. So we do have that landlord letter that's available to anyone that happens to need it. But like I said, you can also rebuild your credit if you want to do that. A lot of our clients don't care about that, but a lot of them do. Okay. The person contacts us from Texas, and they say, I'm receiving letters from lawyers that they learned about a lawsuit against me. I live on Social Security only. Please help. Um, some bankruptcy attorneys subscribe to a service that lets them know if someone's been sued in the area where they practice, like the physical area where they practice. And so they'll send an advertisement letter out, letting someone know that's been sued that, hey, you can come see us for bankruptcy and we can help you. That's why you got that letter. Sometimes people might get a half a dozen letters from different bankruptcy attorneys, depending on where you live. Okay? Person contacts us. They have a debt situation and they say with Midland Credit, they get about $1,300 in Social Security and about $300 a week from a part-time job. Looking to protect myself, I have about 50,000 total in unsecured debt, that's credit card debt, probably, primarily. So the question is, their Social Security is protected, but what about the income from their job? Well, it depends where they live, and then also depends if they're sued or not, and then also depends if their creditor who sued them knows where they work. Like I've explained, the minimum, there's a federal law that protects $217.50 net per week in wages. And this person makes about $300. They make a little bit more. So if they were garnished and only $217.50 was protected, 25% of the 300 could be garnished, which would be about $75. Now, they might live in a state that doesn't allow garnishment to take place, like Texas, or they might live in a state that protects more than 217.50. So for a lot of reasons, and then they may never even get sued, or even if they get sued, they may, the creditor may never know where they work, or if they're worried about it, they could lower their hours so they're making under the protected amount. So there's a lot of reasons why you don't need to worry about losing any of your money if you're working. A lot of our helps clients work or they go back to work. Okay. I know my car insurance will go up after this. Does the landlord letter work also for insurance? No, but let's talk about insurance for a minute. Okay. And I've talked about this before. Okay, so um, if you've got an older model car and it's paid for, and you're on Social Security or a pension and stuff, you only need to carry the minimum insurance allowed by law. You know, and that's, you may only need to have, you know, liability insurance. It means if you get in a wreck, there's insurance coverage that's legal for you to pay the other driver, the other person that you hurt, because if it's your fault. Now, it won't pay you for damage to your car, but if you've got an older car, you may not worry about that because maybe you're a pretty safe driver. And also, you don't have the extra money to pay towards insurance. The other thing, too, is if you do have insurance, you only need to keep the minimal amount. You could keep $25,000 liability insurance, so you could have $1 million liability insurance, or you could have 100,000. Now, the more liability insurance you carry, the more expensive it is. But if you only have a minimal amount, if you got in a wreck and it was your fault and you caused more damage, yeah, you might be responsible for more damage, but it wouldn't matter if they came after you or sued you more than what coverage insurance you have, because they couldn't collect from you because you're judgment proof. Your income's protected. And so, and if you got an older model car and you may not need, and you don't owe any money on it, then you could take off collision and comprehensive insurance and just keep liability and save a lot on the insurance that way. Or you could raise your deductible. So there's different ways to help get your insurance payment down. Okay. And then once again, if you part of helps, you can start to rebuild your credit. Your credit is, interesting enough, is based on your recent credit history. So you can get your credit up to 700 credit score within a year and a half, 2 years. Okay. Person wants to know if they can schedule a phone appointment to talk to us. I'm unstable on Social Security and need help badly with debt. I'm not. Well, I usually don't schedule phone appointments. Maybe some of our paralegals would, but normally, when you call, there's someone available to talk to you. And we save the information so anyone that helps is qualified to speak with you about your situation. And, if for whatever reason you can't get through, we're going to call you back, usually pretty quick. But if you don't get a call back within an amount of time that you feel reasonable, then feel free to call us again. Okay? Okay. Person contacts and they say they're trying to get help with a summons I received from the court today for a lawsuit. Well, if you're sued and you're getting Social Security and your pension and you're not a member of HELPS, we're going to go over your situation and we're going to explain that, they can't do anything to you. If you owe the money, you don't need to file an answer. You don't need to go to court. They'll eventually just get a judgment. They can't touch your Social Security. They can't touch your pension. We'll explain how it's protected in your bank account. So you really don't need, we don't represent people in court. Our clients don't need to go to court. They owe the money, but a creditor can't do anything to them. And so what we do is, we explain why you're going to be okay and why you don't need to worry. Okay. Now, a lot of times people call us and maybe they've been sued and they filed an answer themselves. Well, just because you filed the answer yourself doesn't mean you still have to go to court. I talked to someone yesterday and I had to tell them 3 or 4 times, you don't need to go to court. You should just ignore it. When you enroll in HELPS, we're going to send a letter to that attorney and let them know that you're not going to do anything. They're going to eventually get a judgment, but they can't do anything. They can't collect from you. But I filed an answer, Mr. Olsen, and there's a court date set for some date in March. Well, you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to go. Well, do I need to contact the judge and tell him that I'm not going to be there? No, you don't need to do that. No, he doesn't care. We will contact the other attorney, and so if the attorney goes into court, they'll just say, hey, this person contacted us. They're on Social Security. They're not going to do anything, and the judge will issue a judgment. That's the end of it. You don't need to worry. Okay. It's been an hour. Thank you for your participation today. If you have any questions, call us down below, 855-435-7787. You can make comments. Please press the like button. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do that. A lot of people find out about helps based on our YouTube channel. Okay, so God bless, and I will talk to you tomorrow, same time.